I think that makes more sense. It's still Chuck fucking with them. It's more actually Chuck is actually also fucking with the angels.
Chuck fuck.
Hello and welcome to Saving People Queering Things, the supernatural podcast where things get even more meta than usual.
Today we're pulling up to season 4 with episode 18, The Monster at the End of This Book.
My name is Abigail and my pronouns are they, them.
I'm Noah, my pronouns are he, him.
I'm Elayna, my pronouns are she, they, and we have a special guest back this week. Would you like to introduce yourself, friend?
Hello, my name is Jessy. I'm .tired.gay on TikTok. My pronouns are she, they.
Woohoo!
Hello,
So glad to have
Jessy.
you back.
I'm glad to be back. Yay.
It's like your third appearance here. Like,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, glad to be back.
yeah.
We love having you.
Always a good time.
This is
Yes.
it. Just a real banger of an episode.
Oh, it's so good. Top 5 for me.
This is in my top 5 of episodes.
Yes.
And this is almost a comfort episode, which is very weird to say out loud.
Same.
It does not make sense, but I do feel like I do watch this episode when I want to watch Supernatural, but I want to not feel too sad.
You watch this episode when you want to watch Supernatural. Like
Yes.
this episode is like if you were trying to get someone to understand what Supernatural is as a show, you would show them this episode.
Yes, I literally saw my partner's like the gears in his brain turning when he was watching this with me this morning. Like I literally saw him going, "Oh," but a couple of things.
Fantastic.
Well, I feel like it really gets into the things that make Supernatural interesting as a
Mhm.
show. Like it actually like introduces like fun mechanics that they continue to do
Yeah.
while also having your favorite characters in, i.e. Cast.
Yes, yes.
And it also is like one of the episodes where once you have seen the whole show, the amount of rewatchable oh crap moments in it that make you be like, this was all there the whole time. It's that galaxy brain exploding meme.
Actually, no, I do have a question. And my question is related to a certain children's book that I need to know if you all have read, because if you've not, it's very important. It's this episode is titled The Monster at the End of This Book. This is based on a children's book. And I'm going to show it, and I'm going to post a picture of this on our Twitter, but I'm going to show it to my hosts right now because this is a Sesame Street book. This is what this
Yes.
episode is named after. It is a story about Grover, who really does not want to get to the end of this book because at the beginning of the book he's told there's a monster at the end of this book, and so he does all of these sorts of things, including building walls, and
It's very meta. It's a very meta
it's a
book.
very meta
I'm
sort of
sorry,
book.
you're telling me this episode is based on a Sesame Street book?
Yes.
Yes, yes. And this
Correct.
is a book that I like grew up like I loved this book as a kid. And so when I got to this episode the first time I watched it, I remember like seeing the title and being like, no, that's not a reference to Sesame Street.
No
it is in fact
way.
reference to Sesame Street.
It's
The
beautiful.
funny part is I always knew that this episode title was a reference, but I did not know to what.
Well, now you know. I am going to post a couple of pictures on our Twitter this week of a couple of key pages in this book. This book is you know, in a very children's way about pushing back against the narrative, as you will,
Fighting back against what people tell you.
which you know is sort of fitting.
Kind of shaped you as a child
Making
and
things up as
informed
you
your
go,
decisions.
perhaps.
Interesting. Interesting.
Oh my god.
But now that you've met all of our hosts, it's time to catch you guys up. If you haven't watched Supernatural recently, here's what you've missed on the road so far.
So first up, going to recap the show so far. So are you ready?
Am I ready? That's a really good question. We are 18 episodes in. This is always my favorite part of the season to do the series recap.
Mm-hmm.
A very small amount of information that I need to remember for this. Okay, we're gonna go for it.
All right. 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, so there is this angel. His name is Destiel, and he raises Dean from hell. However, the reason he raises Dean from hell is because God has plans for him, and these plans are to stop the apocalypse because Lilith, this high-up demon, the one to kill Dean, is trying to break seals to raise Lucifer from the cage. But there is some suspicious stuff with the angels. Things are not all as they seem, and turns out maybe everyone's kind of in on it, maybe?
Beautifully done. Beautifully done.
Magnificent.
I feel like we're ready to watch the episode again.
We're at least ready to hear a recap of it from Jessy.
Perfect. That
My
was great.
favorite part.
Everyone's favorite part.
I have full confidence in you.
By which
we have
mean
one guest host who genuinely enjoys this part of the recap.
Ooh.
KJ.
Oh.
KJ likes doing the 30-second recap. KJ is the only person that likes doing the 30-second recap.
That is because KJ is an agent of chaos.
KJ is stronger than me.
KJ is stronger than all of us. I don't even like doing
KJ
the
is
30-second
stronger
recap,
than
and
all of
I
us
designed
combined.
the 30-second recap.
Yeah. KJ is of a realm which we mere mortals could not deign to wish.
Well, tell me when you are ready and I will count you in.
All right, I'll take the plunge whenever.
Okay. 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, so on a routine hunt, they go into a comic book store and get told that they're LARPers for the book series Supernatural, and they track down the author of these books, and it turns out these books are pretty much down to each single detail, detailing their lives of the previous 3 seasons, ending when Dean goes to hell. So they meet the author, his name's Chuck Shirley, and basically they have to stop Lilith. God, I forgot. They run out of time before I get to the actual plot.
I mean,
you got through most of it though.
the books
You
are
got
about
Chuck in
them
there.
and Chuck Shirley. Really, that's
Yeah.
That's the
that's what
episode.
this episode is about.
Didn't mention Cass though.
I know.
That's because we're gonna spend the whole episode mentioning
That's true.
Cass.
Yeah.
The whole rest of it's
We
about
really
him.
are.
So now it's time for us to pick some music to accompany us on our journey. We are going to be collecting songs to create a season 4 mixtape. So here's what we have for this week. Noah, why don't you kick us off with your song?
Today, I've decided to go with How It's Supposed to Be by Mike Posner. It starts off as a nice little soft song about accepting that maybe the wrong decisions you've made are just how it's supposed to be, and that's just how it's written. Then it starts to become more powerful, and it's about, well, hey, if that's how it's supposed to be, maybe I'll die young, and it won't be how it's supposed to be. And
Ooh.
it kind of fits how Dean comes at this episode with Cass and how they fight back with their free will. Very interesting.
Nice. Very fitting.
How about you?
I'm going to go with Inside Job by Pearl Jam.
Ooh.
Also kind of a song about choosing humanity, choosing, what comes in from your heart. It's a very interesting song, kind of thematically. And yeah, that's what I'm going with today.
Oh, yeah. Jessy, how about you?
My pick, mainly because I have only been listening to this album since it came out, and pretty much nothing else other than Taylor Swift, is Daffodil by Florence and the Machine.
Oh, that's a good pick.
Yeah, mainly because the song itself is about there is no good, there is no bad, and sort of things are just having to accept things just as they are, but also trying to hold on to hope while you're doing that. And the line in it of made myself mythical, tried to be real, feels very in line with today's episode.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
Am I really going to use this song? Give me 1 second. I'm just checking the lyrics to make sure this isn't a crazy pick.
I mean, if it is, it'll just add to the general energy of this.
You know what? Screw it. This is all Jesse's fault. That's all I'm going to say.
She said
Is
Taylor
it a Taylor
Swift.
Swift
Yeah,
song,
uh-huh.
Elayna?
It is.
Nice.
And I was like, you know what? Well, let me see what this latest album has to offer.
It's been a few episodes since we've had a Taylor Swift song, so that seems
And
appropriate.
it's usually me. I'm the problem. It's me. My pick for this episode is going to be Mastermind.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely 100% the right pick.
Yeah, it was all by design because I'm a mastermind, but also I would like to point out that the first stanza of the song, Once Upon a Time, the planets and the fates and stars aligned, you and I ended up in the same room at the same time. Big Dean Cass energy, especially of the moment by the vending machines, because oh boy howdy.
Okay.
I
Okay.
didn't know that was going to end up being such a good pick, but it's all Jesse's fault. We love you. Mastermind.
You're welcome.
Oh,
Well, now that we've got our mixtape playing, it's time for the hunt of the week. today's episode is the monster at the end of this book through the theme of knowledge.
There are episodes where we talk more or less about the theme we've chosen. This is going to be one of those episodes where I think the theme is very going to help us a lot with where we're going to go with this episode. But I need to ask a question of Noah first, which is Noah is the only one of us for whom literally this is his first watch of this episode. And we need to know some of your thoughts. We also want to know what you know, because you've been Supernatural fandom adjacent for long enough that you may know some things beyond the scope of this episode. You alluded to that in our conversations prior to recording. What do you know?
Well,
potential spoilers ahead.
Right off the bat, potential spoilers ahead. If you don't want to know anything about what I know, or if you just want to
or
stick
what
it
he's
out,
wildly inaccurate about, which is also possible.
that's also true. I could be completely wrong about some of these things I say, but if you just don't want to know, hit that little fast forward button a few times. You're good. Okay, I know Chuck is God, right? Like,
okay. That's the thing we wanted
I'm
to
good
be.
there.
Oh, what a fucking relief.
Yeah, that's gonna make talking about this episode so much easier.
Yeah, okay.
Thank Chuck. I
Thank
mean,
Chuck. Yeah. See, okay, you can't not know that. I feel like there was so many posts online about like, wow, Supernatural's such a great show. They had God and he was just a guy named Chuck. Like, okay, yeah.
It's hard to miss on Tumblr and whatever.
I also feel like because like Abigail and I talk a lot about the Chuck 1 theory. And so I feel like you've probably heard us mention that like 400 times.
Yeah, I know that. Like, I'm good there. I don't know if he knows that if he's just playing along. It seems like not, but like, I don't know the specifics of that.
That was going to be my question, because like there's like a pretty strong theory about like when does he become God?
Okay. Okay. That's fair. That's fair.
I
So
don't know how
I'll
much
have
you
to
know about
definitely
that.
pay attention to that. And I was watching for that. I was like, okay. I know who this Chuck guy is. Does he know who Chuck is? Like, it
Well, because I
didn't
think
seem
like
like it.
there's a point where like I guess the question is more, at what point do the writers know that Chuck is God?
That's also
Well,
fair.
the fact that he says in this episode, I must be a god, a
thing
cruel,
is,
capricious god.
I
says
think
that.
you can interpret it a couple of different ways, and depending on how sinister you want to read Chuck. Like you can, if you want to read like his, talking about knowledge, if you want to like be like he has full knowledge, like this whole time, this episode gets so much more sinister. I personally like that. I think that
that's how
adds a
I
lot
read
to
it.
that's how I end up reading it now in retrospect, but there's also other valid like ways of interpreting Chuck in this episode of like how much is he fucking with them, basically.
Well, there's like the second he says that line where he's like, there's only one explanation, is that I'm a god. And then there's like this beat where they like linger on his face. And I was like, you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
This is the thing, is I've never been able to decide what I think about like the writers knowing, like is this a Kripke thing that he put in knowing, especially considering
I think he did.
Yeah.
How long does it take before he is like his end of the season type
Do you
stuff?
want to know that
before
information?
yeah, I'm like, that is.
Well, okay, is it past 5 Kripke's era?
Yes, it is past
Okay.
Kripke's era.
Okay, I'm okay with that. That's
Yeah.
fine.
I mean, but is it
Frustrating,
though?
but okay,
Yeah,
whatever.
it is. It is definitely not definitive until after Kripke's era. I think that once you know, it's really easy to see it earlier, but I think it's not definitive until after Kripke's era. That's my argument. But I'm willing, when we get to some of those episodes in season 5 that I think you're referring to, Elayna, I'm willing to be argued wrong.
I look forward to affectionately duking it out with you.
Okay, that sounds good. That sounds good.
But for now, I think we treat him like a prophet. And
Yeah. Right now he's a little squirrely prophet guy.
yeah,
The narrative believes he's a
And
prophet.
Cass is a fan of his work.
Ah!
big fan.
Side eyes Dean.
Okay,
Really
yeah.
hard.
Did you see the outfits? The design of
The lack of outfits.
the lack of outfits, and he immediately was like, "Oh, y'all are cosplaying. Cool, gotcha."
Yeah. Yep. And Cass standing there and flipping through the book, which I didn't catch this watch, which of the books he's flipping through. I do think that might be significant, and I do kind of want to see if I can figure out which of the books he's flipping through.
I think you can see the cover of it.
I think it's super important that in this episode they aren't messing around at all. It starts off with the comic book store, and that kicks off everything. It starts the whole story jumping through and doesn't waste time. Tells you that, hey, the brothers are characters in a series, and what the fuck is going on there? Like, gotta go figure that out.
This reveal is so bonkers. Like, like up till this point, like, not that Supernatural has not gone like meta with episodes prior to this, but this is when you're just suddenly like, we are commenting on our own story and we're commenting on our own fandom within the show.
Mhm. Commenting on their own writing.
Yeah.
Love that. Chuck has a whole monologue about, oh my God, like, you guys having to live through bad writing? Oh, that's so terrible. I'm so sorry.
Did you guys live through the bugs?
They knew.
Okay, so that was my question, is like, was this, I can't remember, is this the first time that it's gone fully this meta?
Yeah.
I think so.
There's a couple of other meta-esque things, like I would say like Ghostfacers has a strong meta element.
With the cursing and all that.
Like with the Ghostfacers effect. There's a couple of other episodes where
It's Scarecrow is the book he picks up.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, there's a couple that I think are kind of a little more meta. I mean, In the Beginning has some meta elements, but I think this is the first like really explicit pull you out of the story to look at the story while still being within the story.
Yeah, it's got episode titles on screen that they are reading through, and it's like, oh, okay, cool. There's some Jess and Bello, Sin City, whatever. Nobody.
Reference
blood. Gordon.
So they reference specific events, like Dean's reading the book and he's like,
I'm full frontal here, dude.
I'm full frontal.
I want to know which book Cass was reading. I was like, is Cass reading Route 666? I want to know.
I wish he was.
I wish, unfortunately.
That would have been great.
Dean, what is this stirring I feel?
I was blown away at first. I was like, whoa, okay, love this.
Did you know about, because you knew about like who Chuck is, but did you know about the books?
I didn't know that they were books. I knew that they end up as characters. It becomes a show at some point, I think. They end up as characters of
this is recurring.
Themselves.
This will be recurring.
Yeah, I knew that happened. I wasn't sure how it started.
Yeah.
But books is
starts
a good
out
way.
with books.
Getting their innermost thoughts and everything. And so that's...
This also has one of my like favorite dumb lines of the whole show. He's just like, I can't see your face, but those are definitely your brooding and pensive shoulders.
You just thought I was a dick.
I don't know why. I think that is one of the funniest lines in like ever.
It really is.
Well, I feel like they finally got to like, I like that they can poke fun at themselves in this way. I feel like this was also like the first time that they started poking fun at their own audience, which I don't like, but
yeah,
being able to poke fun at themselves, 100%.
Being able to poke fun at the fact that this show is cheesy and dramatic, is a nice touch. Like it's
and
self-aware.
Like the moment where like Chuck is also just like as a writer, the moment where Chuck is describing and he reached forth a determined hand and pressed the button with determination. I was like, first of all, this is a call out. Second of all, like it felt like such a nice moment of like writers like joking with themselves.
I also thought the joke where Dean's like, okay, so how does this work? And he's like, so you mean my process? I'm like, you dick, you giant dick. Like,
you mean my process?
Of course he means your process. Like, Chuck is still holding on so tightly to this, like, I'm just a writer. Like, these were my ideas. And it's, I think, really funny. Even funnier when you know who he is. Like, I think that's
one of the only notes that I actually did get a chance to type in the document was my process. Because that part made me laugh so loud.
Well, I love like him being a prophet does not in any way affect whether or not he's a good writer. The Supernatural books very well could be bad, even if they are accurate.
And you get kind of the impression that they maybe are bad.
Because they have an underground following, not a great following.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The fact that the lady has the tattoo on her ass, though, is just always gets me.
That part felt a little too real.
I really, okay, like, this is also the first time we get obviously a fan of Supernatural portrayed. Like, this is not going to be the last time we're going to get a fan of Supernatural portrayed within the show. And I do think, like, you kind of alluded to this earlier, Jessy, like they are, like, when they poke fun at themselves in their writing, it's enjoyable. When they poke fun at the fans, it's less enjoyable to watch because it's kind of it's not just a like, it's a little bit mocking.
Yeah.
Especially because it's made to be seem like their fans are mostly female. Like there's some attitudes towards female fans specifically that are kind of come out in this episode.
Yeah, I think like this episode, I didn't have as much of a problem with it as I do in later episodes, because like,
agreed.
If you were in Sam and Dean's shoes, obviously the whole thing would be really weird, and you would probably have that reaction to it. But the fact that they really do carry on with this, like, oh, it's just weird, like the whole thing is weird, and people who like it are weird, and it's like, that's us, right? We're the people who hate. So
we're the weird.
We're watching your show that you're making for people to watch. Presumably, you want people to watch. It's a little bit of the like. I think there's some issues in the writers' room and creators' rooms where there's like. I think they maybe wanted this show to be like watched by like American men.
Yeah,
and then
they really
when
did.
Their fandom was mostly women and queer people. They were like, we didn't actually want this fan base, so we're going to kind of mock them a little bit. This episode is definitely not the worst offender. There's a couple moments, but yeah, like I think I see when you see it through Sam and Dean's perspective, it's a little more palatable.
Yeah, because it's like I definitely would not want anybody reading my life like that. Like, good God.
Yeah.
It's such a good scene, though. It's such a funny scene.
Yeah.
Them proving who they are.
And it also gives us lots of just like fun facts about them. Like that's how we know when Dean's birthday is.
And that Sam genuinely can't remember what he got on the LSAT.
Yep.
Well, that was one of my notes in regards to knowledge, was like, we're presented with the idea that the people who know the most about them are not them. And I think that's fun.
Ooh, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, me neither.
Because, like, I mean...
because obsessive fans could learn a lot more about people, because if I was trying to memorize facts about somebody that I really, really wanted to know and impress, I would memorize the most obscure facts and things that they themselves might have just forgotten in their day-to-day life. It's a little...
Also thinking about that in terms of like the supernatural fandom, not to get really meta with that, but like this in terms of like the supernatural fandom. And sometimes there's been conversations between the fandom and the creators, and the creators like, we didn't mean something this way, or like, there's sometimes I think fans who spend a lot of time analyzing and knowing and understanding a piece of media, sometimes I think can have an understanding of it and a knowledge of that piece of media or that story that maybe actors in it or creators of it have not actually spent the same amount of time with. And so when I think about like, knowing,
and then it gets people into this silly argument of like, oh, well, they know better than you because they acted it, they lived it. And it's like, well, yes, but they lived it like, 1 week ago, like several years ago. Like the amount of time it takes to act in a scene and the amount of time it takes to rewatch that scene several hundred times over a span of years, and then discuss that scene, and then break that scene down, and then watch 4,000 analyses of that scene.
Whose knowledge is going to be actually more complete?
Yeah,
the person who's read the Supernatural books 50 times, or Sam and Dean who have lived those experiences once and are colored by all of their.
But it's not just the acting of the scene, but the way that it's shot and the framing of it and the different placing of people can change our whole perspective of it. So they could have acted it one way, but if it's edited in a different, then it's a whole different scenario.
Well, because in the like brooding and pensive scene, the brooding and pensive shoulders scene, I just couldn't help but think, if they stopped and read all of those books, how many internal conflicts between the two of them would be resolved? Because they would be seeing each other's perspectives for the first time.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, because when he's like, it just said that you thought I was a dick, and he's like, oh, pretty good.
and then they're resolved. They're not pissed off at each other again. I mean, that's like a small example, but I read a fic once, and it's fic that's like set around season 9, so I won't like give a lot of details, but it's a fic where another character finds like the unpublished copies of like the books like from later on, finds the books through like season 9 and reads them and brings them to the Winchesters and is like, yeah, did you like, I think this fic, don't you?
I know this fic.
Yeah.
Can someone send me this fic?
I will send it. I will find it and I will send it to you.
Especially because you know my feelings on season 9.
I will also recommend it in the links below. I'm trying to be really covert about what I say and don't say, and which is why I'm not saying which character it is. Once you know, it will be very obvious. But it's one, yeah, like where exactly what you said, Jessy, like 17 have the ability to work through some of these conflicts because they're actually able to understand each other's perspective in a way that because they're outside of the narrative a little more, we're looking in because it's from Chuck writing it. But it's also interesting because it ends up, anyway, it's a Destiel thing. It's great. It's a wonderful, wonderful fic. I highly recommend it, and I will link it when I find it. I do not remember what it's called, but I will link it in the description. But that whole thing where how much could they, solve by reading these books, but also like how much forced vulnerability, like Dean's like, maybe I don't want my brother to read about my sex life.
That's fair and valid.
Yeah, can't argue with that. Did love the scene where Chuck confronted Sam about drinking the demon blood. That scene was very important and very powerful because he called him out for like knowing that it's wrong. He said, "Come on, Sam, like really?"
What gets me is that he said he didn't even put it in the books because it would make him unsympathetic.
Which is so interesting when you think about Sam's presentation in the show.
I thought that this moment was so interesting from Sam's perspective because he's talking to somebody who knows everything there is to know about him and then comes out at the end of it saying you're unsympathetic and you're not good. You're evil.
And that's like,
and you know it.
That's been Sam's like biggest fear since season 1 is that like something is wrong about who he is. And then like when he found out about the demon blood from when he was a baby, that threw him into a crisis of like, maybe I'm just bad. Like maybe that's who I am. Maybe I can't escape that. Like the fact that now a prophet is telling him that his action, that basically like he's sort of destined to be the villain, like be unsympathetic, that his reasons for doing things aren't good enough.
Which is interesting if, I don't know if we're completely cutting out what we talked about earlier, R.E. Chuck.
We won't.
Pieces.
We'll just say again that this episode is probably going to continue to contain some spoilers. So if you don't want to know, this may be a good time to pop out, come back in a little bit. It's going to be there's going to be some spoilers in this. We can recommend some other podcasts talking about this episode that won't contain spoilers if you want to listen to a discussion of this episode without that. But yeah, anyway.
So like if you look at it from okay, at this point we know Chuck is a prophet. We don't know anything else about him. If we look at him as a prophet, he's still just a regular man interpreting this information. So like, okay, his opinion on what Sam does is like kind of, he's just a guy.
He's just a mouthpiece,
Yeah, but if we look at him as like, here is God's opinion on you. God knows everything about you, and he thinks you're evil. Or he's being manipulative.
Or he's made you to be evil, depending on what God's powers are.
He's trying to get you to think you are.
Yeah, he's got ulterior motives. Versus like just some guy who like saw what you were doing and was like, ugh,
Yeah, that's true. And also like Chuck as if Chuck is just a guy, he's not like someone that you would look at and be like, yes, this is a person who's like really got his shit together and like has reputable opinions.
The man with the upstanding moral compass.
Obviously, like those are wild stereotypes, and like we're not trying to say that like that's just mostly just like that. The way Chuck is presented to us, pre us knowing he's a prophet, and then pre us knowing that he's God, is that he is sort of like just
the everyday man.
Yeah, and not a particularly put together one. Kind of one that's super messy and like is mostly trying to escape his life into this story that he's writing.
And he is somebody that's like completely removed from the situation. He is the everyman. So to have somebody who like, sees the stakes, but also sees them as a regular person and is like,
yeah. Because that in that way, it's almost worse because in that way, Chuck is exactly the kind of person that Sam would usually save. And so for someone that Sam would normally be saving to be thinking that he's the bad guy, like that almost feels like it would hit worse for Sam.
And Chuck and Sam has spent so much time trying to be quote unquote normal and having it slip further and further away from him. And now that like a normal person would look at him and be like, you're unsympathetic.
Oh,
that really sucks.
Yeah, I just realized too, also like finding out that he's the mouthpiece of God, and then his religious trauma
Yeah.
the second time around of being like, oh, this person who stands for God also thinks I'm evil.
Another one.
Yeah, because we did talk about how on our episode where he meets Cass, how like depressing that was for Sam, because he's like, oh my God, hello, Mr. Angel, sir. And Cass is basically like, hello, you're bad.
Oh, you're the evil one, right?
And Sam, of the two brothers, like this, we'll talk about it in a little bit, how this episode is kind of a turning point for Dean in terms of like elements of faith. But for Sam, like that's something that he's held really firmly from the beginning of the show, that he's fought really hard not to lose his like faith in goodness, his faith in like doing the right thing, his faith in God, and a God who like cares. And now finding out that like the prophet is prophesying that he's going to be like given to Lilith.
He's going to be caught in the throes of fiery demonic passion.
Oh, God.
Or fiery demonic whatever, as Dean so happily puts
Dean
it.
can't even bring himself to say it. It's
Which is
beautiful.
hilarious because that's
Just bless him.
which is very funny considering like we've already been through this with with Ruby. Like this is not you just
Well,
really...
I think that's the sad part, is that like Sam is so offended that like Dean would believe that he would do this with Lilith, but I think it sucks because Dean's sitting there being like, well, you did it with Ruby, like
you thought you had a good reason with Ruby.
yeah.
Who's to say you aren't going to think you have a good reason with Lilith,
Yeah.
but that's not necessarily going to be a bad thing, which I think is also indicative of kind of where their relationship is at. Like they've both been keeping things from each other all season. There's the trust that they had, I think, pre this season, is not that like they've ever had a super healthy communicative relationship, but there was some like trust, like when Dean came back from hell, that really kind of has been shifting. And like when you talk about knowledge, like they've both been keeping things from each other, but also like Dean has known certain things and he's kept from Sam that he knows, which is just like the longer it goes on, the more he's like, okay, well, this is suspicious that Sam isn't talking to me about how he's getting these powers. And there's more and more reasons that Dean's like, well, I just don't know if you're going to go dark side.
They were brutally honest in that whole conversation about going dark side. It was intense, but heavily needed. And it immediately led into the first time that we've seen Dean really pray, I think, right? Since
This is a
faith
big
maybe.
moment.
And who shows up within 0.5 seconds?
Near immediately, Cass is there, ready to help as much as he can.
Prayer is a sign of faith. Like he's not just being like he's like identifying that like prayer, it's not just like a sign. He's not calling it like a sign of desperation. Like Dean's like, I am desperate here. I do not have options. I need help. And Cass is immediately like, I'm going to interpret that and be like, you have faith in something.
It's kind of a growth moment, because like you think in the very, not 17 episodes ago, he was, that's your problem, Dean, you have no faith. And so this is like Cass, I feel, is a little like, I told you so. Like he's
just a bit.
He's a little too happy about it, and he should be.
I also loved, so like the last episode that I was on this show for, I think helped me to contrast this, but the concept of Dean asking for help at all was, I was like, oh, it's almost like you trust somebody.
Wait, what was the last one that you were on?
Oh, long distance call. That's why it's long distance call.
Oof.
We were talking about Dean having faith in John or not having faith in John.
Yes. So now he has something to have faith in, and it is not God.
And it is not John.
Not his dad.
Yeah, it is.
That is fascinating. And he doesn't have any more knowledge, like he doesn't, like he knows probably even less about Cass than he did about John. But there's an element of like trust that he doesn't have with anyone else. And he doesn't have that with Sam right now. And in a lot of ways, like he can't have faith in Sam the same way maybe even Sam would have faith in him, because he's the like older brother. He's Sam's parental figure. Like I don't think he would allow himself to have faith in Sam. And like Sam kind of talks about it in the episode too, about how he wants to like do something for once. Like he wants to be able to actually, the angels seem to think it's going to be Dean, and Sam's like, well,
I think it could be me.
Yeah. And, I think Sam wants Dean to be able to have faith in him, but that's not where things are going right now, sadly.
Also, about this moment, something that gets talked about a lot, but I also think we should talk about the first time that Cass appears in this episode is obviously the introduction of free will.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, like, so the first scene that Cass is in this episode, where he's, reading the book and saying, "Oh, I love your work," he's introducing the concept that they don't have free will and that everything is predestined. And here we get to see it in very literal action. And then, of course, his next scene where we get to see him break that.
And we get to see him like rebel, like not just like exercise free will, but like straight up be like, "This is why I can't help you. Let me give you the information that you need to disobey." Like,
but here's the thing. Here's the kicker for me, is that he does not do that until Dean tells him to basically like lose his number.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, "Fuck off if you're not gonna help.
Off. I'm done."
It takes Dean being like, I'm gonna be gone. You will not get any more help from me. Like I will be out of this. And
this was
it's
first prayer, last prayer type shit.
Yeah, and it basically, to me, that always came across as Cass realizing like I have to, like, I can't lose Dean, so I am gonna have to, like, I have to make this choice. I have to rebel. Well, and then the way that Chuck is like, "I didn't write this."
Yes.
Dean shows up
immediately. Well, and so I'm gonna come back to this, and I feel like I've quoted this scene a few times, but like Cass's whole arc in this season is about free will, and I think about that scene where he's like, "Can I tell you something I haven't told anyone else?" Like, Dean is the only person that Cass has like admitted his doubts to, his questions to. So the idea that Dean would just be like, "Actually, I'm gonna walk away because you can't get the stick out of your ass." Like, I think Cass goes like, I haven't figured out what this all is yet. Like, Cass has like been started on this path towards free will, but he is terrified of the consequences of that.
And I wrote it down as it being a strategic move. I love the idea of it having to have been like it forced his hand a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And to Cass, he probably was like, "Well, what the hell else am I supposed to do?" And I don't know.
Yeah, it's great because it's the fact that like Dean is so unpredictable and so fixated on free will and so unwilling to be told what to do that Cass is just like, and then just like is like, "Okay, fine." Like, I guess there is a way actually we can get around this.
It's giving "You changed me, Dean." Just saying.
No, okay. In relation to that scene, I have this in no way spoils anything for Noah, but if you know, people listening will understand why this broke me. The line never hit me until today. Remember how I was saying, like, when he says to Cass, like, "I'm gonna be gone if you don't help me." The line specifically is, "Don't come knocking."
Oh,
go directly to jail. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. That is not okay, Elayna.
I know. That's it. That's all I had to say. That's my contribution.
The way the writers stumble into things sometimes.
Yeah, that's why I know that, like,
the accidental genius of Supernatural.
Yeah, the accidental genius strikes again.
I also want to just point out a quote in the same breath from earlier on that hit me differently today. And that's "We get off book, we never make it to the end." And I don't have any like comments about that aren't wildly spoilery, but just that sort of thesis of we take the ending and we throw it out. Literally and metaphorically.
I can't have any further thoughts without accidentally spoiling. So
it's okay.
I'm keeping mum.
I think, Jessy, we had talked about doing an episode specifically about. Anyway, we're gonna do an episode specifically about Chuck where we can talk a bit more spoilery. So we'll come back to some of this. Stay tuned for a bonus episode at some point in the future because we're not waiting till season 15 to talk about certain things.
I did remember my point though. Because I had "We go off book" in my notes as well, just because I think it very beautifully ties into the theme of the week. Like, it's like once you have that knowledge of how it's going to end, then you kind of like you have the opportunity to choose something different.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think that like that's kind of a cool tie into the theme.
But we have examples of them trying to choose something different and it being the choices that end up resulting in what they read before.
Mm-hmm.
So
well, that's the thing is like destiny or God or whatever you want to call it fights back in this episode. Like they try like not extreme ways of exerting their free will, and they get thrown on their asses a bunch of times.
Yeah.
Literally.
And it's not actually until Cass intervenes, and Cass goes, this is like the big move that we make. And this is the big unknown. Like, when I think about this theme of knowledge, free will is like basically acknowledging to yourself that you won't have perfect knowledge. Free will is going, I'm going to have to make a decision, and I'm not going to know all the outcome.
Well, because what I wrote down about this episode was like, how much does knowledge even matter? Like,
Ooh.
like foreknowledge isn't helping them in any way, and I think it really ties into the theme of the whole season, which is just like how helpless they are, and having any sort of knowledge about the situation because they're so far out of their depth is like useless until they do decide to just like completely throw out the rule book, and I love that about it.
I like that idea that like their knowledge is not really helping them, and that's like sort of the key to it. They have to start entirely playing by different rules before they get any headway. When they start just being like, oh, they go, oh, the books, they're a guidebook of what not to do, but that's still like taking those books as if they are the only option.
That's still using a guide as opposed to letting what happens happen.
Yeah.
Which I think is interesting when you view it compared to previous seasons, because I feel like season 4 is this like so vastly different. Like after season 4, the show gets so vastly different than the previous seasons. Like, yeah, they have all of this basis of knowledge, but how much is it even serving them right now?
Yeah. Yeah. And this is the first season where we really dealt with the idea of like destiny. You know, in previous seasons, there were little hints of it, especially with Sam. But this is the first season where we've kind of gone, oh, there's like cosmic destiny. There are cosmic forces trying to get their way. And yet these
brothers and their angel boy toy are fucking it all up. Sorry, Castiel, you're more than that, but
depending on the fan fiction,
depending on the slash. That feels like a fantastic point to move into our going meta section, where we are tracking lore / representation / behind the scenes trivia and more.
Yeah, obviously this is, I mean, we'll like mention it really. You have gotten really unlucky on the episodes you've been on, Jessy. I feel like this is the second time you've been on an episode where the show has explicitly addressed Wincest. So
really,
like 4 episodes total that have ever talked about it into this point. You've been on 2 of them now.
Yep.
Oh god.
In like 80 episodes.
Unfortunate.
We're gonna just slide real quick past it. I do appreciate, as opposed to maybe the previous couple of times this has come up in the show, that this one they let the characters speak for it and go like, oh no.
Yeah.
I just appreciate that canonically within the show, it's explicitly rebuffed.
They are both like,
yeah.
Well, because I think in the Playthings episode, which is the first one I was on, it's more of a joke about like somebody thinks that they're a couple or something.
Yeah, it is.
And that feels more like support for Wins.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, they get to bring it up and immediately drop it, pass on.
Yeah.
It was good.
There was a lot. There was some homophobia in this episode, though. I felt like that. I don't know if this is the right point to talk about this, but
Yes, it is.
Episode.
It absolutely is.
There was the server at the restaurant was like, Oprah's girlfriend says this is the best burger, which is just such an odd place to do that. Like,
Yep.
hello? I don't, maybe it's just that it was 2008 maybe.
Yeah, 2009, 2010.
Yeah.
Well, no, I think that was like, that's just a thing. Like people use that phrase like all the time to just be like, oh yeah, like a friend.
Yeah.
And I've never liked it. Trust me, I don't enjoy it at all. But that's like just a freaking thing that straight people do. They just refer to their friends as their girlfriends, and I'm like, I could never.
Well, because around 2010, I had to Google it. I was like, is Oprah gay? I literally don't know anything. But around 2010, there was a lot of like stuff about Oprah and her friend.
Speculation. Yeah. There was a lot of
Really?
not in good faith speculation. There was a lot of bad faith speculation, and that's definitely what they're jabbing at a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah. Jeez, I did not know that.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Well, that makes me angry.
Yeah. It's more sinister, unfortunately, than just like a bad throwaway comment.
Well, it was
Yeah.
maybe I just like because I can't remember what it was like to be in that time, but I was like, why even mention that? It's fine, whatever.
Yeah.
What benefit did that? Okay. Disappointing us.
Yeah.
If we want to like talk a little bit about like lore, I mean, we've already kind of talked about that already, but there's obviously this episode is entirely lore.
It's all about, establishing the boys as their own lore in their own universe, which is interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
The lore is coming from inside the episode.
We get some information about prophets and archangels. We don't see an archangel.
No,
Is this
but
the first mention of archangels?
I think it's the first time we've explicitly had to confirm. Well, no, because we know about Lucifer.
We knew about
okay.
them.
So we know.
This is the first time we've tried summoning one.
Yeah, and it was unclear, like an archangel. It was unclear who that
Which of
archangel would
them?
be.
My money's
Yeah.
on Michael. But
Your money's
whatever.
on Michael. Oh, that was going to be my next
Yeah.
question. Was who do you think it is? No.
was
If
gonna
it's
say
the
Raphael.
archangel scheduled to protect God, I mean Chuck, I think it's probably Michael.
That's also the thing, is because it's not actually like how much of this is playing the game. Because obviously it's Chuck, it's God. He doesn't need an archangel to protect him, but he's got to keep up appearances.
Yeah,
Mhm.
like
He's got
does
to
he
like
have
let
the arc?
himself be foiled almost by their plan. Like he has to kind of go, oh well, in my own lore, I said prophets would be protected by archangels. So crap. I guess
So get one of them over here.
I guess
real
I
quick.
have to like
Wait.
acknowledge their free will. Like I guess I have to let them win this one.
Well,
Which I
I
think-
wonder if it's like he has like the archangels programmed to like look after Chuck. Like if the archangels aren't necessarily in on it, like they legitimately think that he's a prophet.
That's actually a really interesting question.
I think that would make sense because I don't think
Well,
I
because
mean,
Zachariah doesn't know and Cass doesn't know, so I think it would
Yeah.
make
But
sense
they're
that
both
the
like
archangels.
lower level angels. I think that doesn't necessarily mean the archangels don't know, but I think they probably don't know. I do agree that they don't know.
oh wait, we answered. I was like, have we met the other archangels yet? Because I feel like they talk about it later. But
Yeah, it's definitely
Well-
going to come up.
Well, we've met the trickster.
well, that's true.
Met the trickster? Okay, sure.
Yeah.
That's
Okay, I'm just letting you know. I know we've met the trickster.
Okay.
Sorry.
Would you look at the chart? No.
but I basically I feel like later it's implied that the archangels don't.
I think you're correct about that. I think that makes more sense. It's still Chuck fucking with them. It's more Chuck is actually also fucking with the angels.
Yeah.
Chuck fuck.
Well, because I think also later it's implied that for a while Chuck was very amused by all of this.
The Winchester gospel is a
Yeah.
new phrase that will probably come back. I don't know. It's good to be established. I like it. It's a good sign of fun things to come.
Also like gospel, like good news, like that's
Have you heard the good news about Sam and Dean?
that's really interesting.
I want to talk about the Lord and Savior Castiel.
Correct.
Yes.
But besides that, I didn't notice anything else super lore related.
Mhm. Yeah.
I think it's worth noting that the lore in the supernatural books within the show is slightly different than the real lore.
Is it? Okay. So people can't be reading the books and summoning demons and stuff.
Well, because he talks about like when he says the thing about Sam drinking demon blood, he says he's like, I didn't even include that in the books, and I think there's like a couple other hints that he like tweaks stuff a little bit.
He's editing
Okay.
the way the narrative is going to be perceived.
Yeah.
Which is also like interesting when you think of things like the Ghost Facers effect, where we see them without a filter and it's a different things are different, like the idea that Chuck similarly is like even the show that we're seeing is not necessarily actually it's not unbiased.
The real them.
Mhm.
It's not the full story.
It's been curated for audience.
Well, because you know what, like, could lend to that one moment that I did notice, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but when when Dean is confronting Sam and he's like, I know what you've been up to. And Sam has this like moment of panic where he's like, oh crap, he knows. And he's just like, about how you, did whatever you did to Alistair. And he says Cass told him about it. We don't ever actually see the scene where Cass tells him, do we?
We've seen some scenes where Cass has said, like, your brother's going down a dangerous path, stop him or we will.
But we didn't see a scene where where he directly told him like what Sam did to Alistair.
Oh no, yeah, no, we don't see that scene.
And so that's just like when that moment came up, that was like something where I was like, oh, that's a
They're
moment
having conversations
that we're not seeing.
Good to
What
know.
else are they doing that we're not seeing?
Where's that fanfiction?
It's fine.
That like
Not
gas,
far.
that like vending machine shot is like so iconic. Just that shot is such the way the lighting is. You're also getting kind of angelic vibes from it, but also
Cass's
like
lamp.
Americana sort of vibes. Like,
Listen, one day I'm gonna talk you into letting me do a Cass's lamp episode.
I think we could talk for a whole episode about that.
I think I could do a mini series season about that.
One last note I had about going meta is Rob Benedict came in this episode for the first time, and I think it's
Yes,
worth
he
noting that
did.
he's
Yes.
another Psych alumni, and he's great. And
No,
I love
he's
him.
not.
Work.
I
Yes, he is.
for all
I mean, I was
psyched.
excited last episode when Zachariah showed up, so I was very psyched to see him.
They're all on psych.
Also, I don't know if you've seen this is what Elayna and I were alluding to now last time we talked, that The Boys has also just cast Rob.
Yes.
And we didn't want to say, I was like, we were like, there's another Supernatural joining The Boys, but we can't tell you we can't tell you anything. I knew we were recording this episode, so
This is him. He's the problem. It's him.
very excited
Jeffrey Dean
about
Morgan and Rob Benedict in the same season. It's going to be powerful.
Wait a minute. I forgot about
so
Jeffrey.
maybe God can beat up
Mhm.
John Winchester.
Fine.
I
That
wouldn't
would be
mind
sick.
that. I wouldn't
It's going
mind
to be
that.
great. And Jensen Ackles near the end. Beautiful.
And Jensen can beat them both up after.
I would. yes. Oh, there's
Did
that
I see
scene.
something
Much
about Alex
needed.
Calvert as well? Or
Yeah,
did I
he's in the spin-off
Mhm.
of The Boys. He also looks like a giant douchebag. His character looks like a giant douchebag, and I am super here for it. I think he's going to be playing the
Going to be
opposite of
great.
Jack Glenn, which is going to be great.
collecting them like Pokemon?
Eric Kripke, I'm in your
Eric Kripke
walls.
only knows 3.5 people.
That's it.
Yeah, so that's about it we have for the episode. So we're going to move into our last and often our favorite part of the episode, which is our character blessings. Noah, who do you want to bless this?
I would like to bless Chuck because as he appears, he's just a guy struggling to do the best that he can with the information that's presented to him. And he's not the best writer, but he's trying.
I need you to know
Aren't
the
we
visceral
all?
reaction my body had to you saying, I want to bless Chuck. Just-
Yes.
years of trauma pent up, knowing years.
I think he's going to have a long, dirty, dark road ahead of him. And I just want him to be nice to the boys.
It's a blessing on someone else's behalf.
Yeah. I want him to be doing better so he's not mean to my guys. Jessy, how about you?
I would like to bless the publisher.
You beat me to it.
Yeah. What's her? Did we get a name for her?
No,
No, I
the
don't think
publisher is her name.
She's
Sounds like a
though.
great superhero name. The
He
publisher.
was
Cares
on
so
Once
much
Upon a
about those
Time.
books.
Yeah.
I think that's very sweet, and she wants them to be published more. I love her,
And
Honestly,
she's protective of her boys. Relatable.
Yeah.
and I don't think Noah will know what I mean here, but she's the proto Becky, and I.
Oh, and yes, she is.
She's the Becky blueprint, and we have to pay homage for that.
She,
Yes.
hey, fans don't get represented in shows super often, and we're not like 100% happy with her presentation. There are moments where I'm very fond of
Yeah.
her, like mostly her enthusiasm.
Yeah, if we're talking about Becky in particular, I feel like she was failed by the Supernat
Yes.
writers.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm gonna have
I don't
things
blame
to
her
say.
for that. Anyways,
We'll get to that. We'll have things to say when we get to that. But the publisher, that's a good blessing.
I was also going to bless the publisher, but since Jessy beat me to it, I'm gonna bless our boy. I'm gonna bless Dean. Just he's he's going through it this episode. He's having such a crisis of faith, and he's so worried, and I want to give him a hug as usual. It's always Dean. It always comes back to Dean for me. I want that boy to be blessed.
I love that. I went back and forth several times as to who I was going to bless, but I think I'm going to bless Cass.
Yay!
For going against the prophet's words. Like big fucking deal for an angel to be like, I can't help you, but let me give you the information on how to basically give a giant middle finger to God's will.
Yeah, defying the will of God on a Thursday, as he does.
Like,
no big.
Just a bamf mood from Cass, and just I'm excited. This is a turning point for him as well, and I'm very proud of my boy. Little celestial being.
A boy can also be a celestial being.
Well, that is the end of our episode today. So you can subscribe to Saving People Queering Things wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you so desire to share our show, share it with your friends who like Supernatural or who...
Share it with the ones who don't like Supernatural, actually, because I think we could win them over.
There we go.
You can find links to all of our social media and join our Discord server through our website, queeringthingspodcast.com.
Thank you, Jessy, so much for being here again. Always
oh my God.
Such a delight.
Such a great time.
Thank
It was great to meet you.
It's great to meet you.
You're a gem and we adore you.
Anytime.
I think you said it earlier on in the episode, but where can people find you on the internet?
I am .tired.gay on TikTok and just about nowhere else.
Relatable.
You make great content, mostly right now about Stranger Things.
Yeah, the brain rot's real.
That's okay. It's almost over.
True.
And if you are all caught up on Supernatural and you would like to go back to before the beginning, Abigail, as well as our friends Beth and KJ, and occasionally yours truly, are watching the Winchesters. So you can catch that podcast on Twitter, where we're at Wayward Parents, or on Tumblr at Wayward Parents Pod. And be sure to ride along with us next week as we discover episode 19, Jump the Shark Through the Theme of Nurturing.
Thank you all for coming along for the ride, and we wish you a peaceful road until we meet again.